Good morning. Welcome back to our read aloud. We are on chapter 21, and the name of this chapter is The Enchanter Clip Clap. I hope you're comfortable because this is going to be a great story today. The wishing chair rose high up and flew steadily towards the west. It had a long way to go, so it flew faster than usual, and all its four wings flapped swiftly. I wonder where the enchanter lives, said Molly. I hope he won't capture us, too. This is a dangerous mission. Well, all this would never have happened if we hadn't quarreled with Chingy, said Peter. He wouldn't have gone back home then and wouldn't have gone out to buy a new handkerchief and wouldn't have been captured by that yellow bird that swooped down on him and took him away. I shall never quarrel again, said Molly. It made her very sad when she remembered the unkind things she had said that morning. The chair flew over a wood. Molly leaned over the arm of the chair and looked down. Look, Peter, she said. What is that funny thing sticking out of the wood, which means forest? Peter looked. It's a very, very high stone tower, he said. Isn't it strange? It's just a tower by itself. It doesn't seem to be part of a castle or anything. I say, the chair is flying down to it. Do you suppose that's where the enchanter lives? It must be, said Molly. The children looked eagerly downwards to see what sort of tower this was. It certainly was very strange. It had a pointed roof, but no chimneys at all. Trying to find a window, the chair circled around and flew downwards, but there was not a single window to be seen. This really is a very magical sort of tower, said Molly. Not a window anywhere. Well, there must be a door at the bottom to get by. The chair flew to the ground and stayed there. The children jumped off. They went to the tower and looked for a door. There was not one to be seen. The tower was quite round and very tall indeed, higher than the highest tree, but it had no doors and no windows, so it seemed quite impossible to get into. Molly and Peter walked round and round it a great many times, but no matter how they looked, they could see no way to get in. Do you suppose that Chingy is in there? Said Molly at last. Sure to be, said Peter gloomily. We told the chair to take us where Chingy is, and here we are. Well, what are we to do? Asked Molly. Shall we call for Chingy loudly? No, said Peter at once. If you do that, the enchanter will know we are here and capture us too. Don't do anything like that, Molly. Well, how else are we going to tell Chingy that we are here, said Molly. We must do something, Peter. It's no good standing here looking for doors and windows that aren't there. Shh, said Peter suddenly, and he pulled Molly behind a tree. He had heard a noise. Molly caught hold of the wishing chair and pulled that behind the tree too, only just in time. There came a loud noise, like the clip-clapping of thunder. A great door appeared in the round tower, half as high as the tower itself. It opened, and out came the enchanter, clip-clap. He was very tall and thin, and had a long beard that reached all the way to the ground. He wore it in a braid, and it looked very strange. See you finish that spell properly, he called to someone in the tower. Then there came another loud clapping noise, just like a roll and the crash of thunder, and the door in the tower closed and vanished. The enchanter strode away through the wood, his head almost as high as the trees. Goodness, said Molly, we only just got behind this tree in time. It's impossible to get into that tower, Peter. We should never know how to make that door open. What are we to do? Sighed Peter. I hate to think of poor old Chingy, a prisoner in there, and all because we quarreled with him too. Let's hide the chair under a bush and see if we can find anyone living nearby, said Molly. We might find someone who can help us. So they carefully hid the chair under a bramble bush and piled branches over it. Then they found a little path and went down it, wondering where it led to. It led to a small, pretty cottage. The name on the gate was Dimple Cottage. Molly liked that sound, the sound of it. She thought it would be a quite safe place to go. They knocked, and to their enormous surprise, the door was opened by a brown mouse. She wore a checked apron and cap and large slippers on her feet. The children stared. They could never get used to this type of thing, although they had seen many strange things by now. "Good afternoon," said Peter, and then didn't know what else to say. "Do you want to see the woman of the house?" asked the mouse. "Well, yes, perhaps that would be a good idea," said Peter. So the mouse asked them in and showed them to a tiny drawing room. "What are we to say?" whispered Peter, but before Molly had time to answer, someone came into the room. It was a small elf with neat silvery wings, silvery golden hair, and a big dimple in her cheek when she smiled. Molly and Peter liked her at once. "Good afternoon," she said. "What can I do for you?" Both talking at once, the two children told her their troubles and how they quarreled with Chingy and how he had gone home and been brought by the yellow bird belonging to the enchanter Clip Clap, and how their wishing chair had brought them to the strange tower. "But we don't know how to get into it, and we're afraid of being caught by Clip Clap too," said Peter. "I don't know if you can help us." "I don't think I can," said the elf, whose name was Dimple. "No one knows a spell powerful enough to get into the enchanter's tower. I've lived here for 300 years, and no one has ever gotten into that tower except the enchanter and his servants and his friends. I wouldn't even try if I were you." "We must," said Molly. "You see, Chingy is our friend, and we must help him." "Yes, we have to help our friend," said the elf. "Wait a minute, I wonder if my mouse knows anything that might help us. Harriet! Oh, Harriet!" The little servant mouse came running in. "Yes, madame," she said. "Harriet, these children want to go into the enchanter's tower," said Dimple. "Do you know of any way in?" "Well, yes, madame, I do," said Harriet. "Oh, you do?" cried Molly in delight. "Do tell us, Harriet." "My auntie lives down in the cellars of the tower," said the little mouse. "Sometimes on my afternoon off I go and see her." "And how do you get into the tower?" said Dimple. "Down the mouse hole, of course," said Harriet. "There's one on the far side of the tower. I always scamper down there." "Oh," said the children in disappointment, looking at the small mouse. "We couldn't get down a mouse hole. We're too big. You are a big mouse, but even so, the mouse hole would not take us." Molly was so disappointed that she cried into her handkerchief. Dimple patted her on the back. "Don't do that," she said. "I can give you a spell to make you small. Then you can slip down the mouse hole with Harriet and see if you can find Chingy." "Oh, thank you," cried the children in delight. "That is kind of you." Dimple went to a shelf and took down a box. Out of it she shook 2 pills. They were strange because they were green on one side and red on the other. "Here you are," she said. "Eat these and you'll be small enough to go down the hole. They taste horrible, but don't mind that." The children each chewed up a pill. They certainly had a funny taste, but they were very magic indeed, and no sooner were they eating them than Molly and Peter felt as though they were going down a lift, which means an elevator, for they suddenly grew very, very tiny indeed. They looked up at Dimple, and she seemed enormous to them. "Harriet, take off your apron and cap and take the children to your auntie," said Dimple. So Harriet carefully folded up her cap and her apron and then went out with the children. She took them to the tower and showed them a small hole under the wall. "Down here," she said, and down they all went. And that is the end of that chapter. So their problem still, the big overarching problem is what? Chingy is missing. He's been captured. But then there's a second problem. Can you think of the second problem? The second problem is what? They've found where Chingy probably is, but they can't get in. So they found a solution to the second problem, that They're going to go in by the help of Harriet. And now they've gone from big to small. But they haven't done it yet. So it's a plan for a solution. But we'll have to see how it goes. I think we've learned that it never quite turns out as they think. But it usually turns out pretty good. All right. I will see you soon. And enjoy your day.